Daddy's Head is an essential viewing experience for those who revel in horror films that leave the terror shrouded in mystery, allowing the darkness to whisper its secrets rather than laying them bare. After watching this movie, you'll definitely think, what on earth did we just witness? A family tormented by the eerie, scuttling figure of their deceased relative, a massive metaphor for mourning, or perhaps a blend of both. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. With its humorously absurd title, Daddy's Head presents a haunting and occasionally perplexing exploration of grief and a family's struggle to heal after an unimaginable tragedy. This film certainly raises a lot of questions, and we've taken the time to unpack them here. Daddy's Head. What's all about? Isaac and his stepmother, Laura, found themselves ensnared in a web of darkness after the untimely death of Isaac's father, James. The shock of James's passing clawed at their souls, twisting their grief into something far more sinister. Just a child, Isaac had already been shattered by the loss of his mother, and now, before he could even begin to heal, his father was snatched away in a horrific accident. Alone in a world that felt increasingly hostile, Isaac was an orphan, adrift and abandoned. Laura, too, was engulfed in sorrow. She had married James out of love, embracing the role of a stepmother with a heart full of hope, but the weight of her new responsibilities crushed her spirit. The sudden burden of being Isaac's sole guardian was overwhelming, and she found solace in the bottom of a bottle, drowning her despair night after night. In a haunting ritual, she replayed the home videos of happier times, each frame a reminder of what was lost. Their shared misery created an invisible chasm between them, one that deepened with each passing day. But then, the atmosphere shifted, darkening with suspicion. Laura began to entertain the horrifying thought that Isaac had killed their beloved dog, Bella. The boy had spoken of his father's visits, but these were no ordinary encounters. James had returned, transformed into a grotesque creature that prowled on all fours. Laura's mind spiraled into paranoia. She sensed something was deeply wrong with Isaac, and when the knife she kept hidden in her bedside drawer vanished, her fears morphed into certainty. She believed Isaac had taken it, using it to commit unspeakable acts. What had become of her stepson, and who or what was haunting him?
I really care about you.
Is the creature real or just imagination? In the shadowy corners of Daddy's Head, one might argue that Isaac's turmoil stemmed from a deep psychological fracture, with the creature merely a specter conjured by his troubled mind. This theory holds some weight, for loneliness had wrapped its cold fingers around Isaac, leaving him yearning for a connection with his father, even if it was just a whisper of his presence. Days slipped by in a haze of video games, and every encounter with Laura felt like a clash of two worlds, awkward and strained. Their conversations were barren, and the meals she prepared were nothing short of distasteful to him. Then came the night when a bizarre creature flitted through their home, only to leap from the window as Bella pursued it. In that moment of chaos, something shifted within Isaac. He found himself asking Laura if he could share her room for the night, a request that surprised even him. As they lay there, their bodies instinctively intertwined, a fragile sense of solace enveloped them. They were each other's lifeline in a world that felt so isolating. Yet, as dawn broke and reality seeped back in, they both turned away from the truth that lingered in the air, choosing instead to ignore the bond that had briefly illuminated their darkened hearts. Isaac's mind was a canvas painted with shadows, each stroke darker than the last. He had a talent for conjuring images that danced on the edge of nightmares. One fateful night, as he drifted into the realm of dreams, a voice slithered from the murky corner of his room, beckoning him to the woods. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the garden, revealing his father lurking behind the thick foliage. Isaac, blissfully unaware of the absurdity, felt a rush of joy at the sight of his father's familiar figure. But Bella, with her instinctive unease, darted toward the figure that resembled James, sensing the wrongness in the air. It was Laura who had to intervene, her heart racing as she tried to restore order. Concerned for Isaac's well-being, she sought the help of a therapist who concluded that the boy's vivid imagination, exacerbated by the recent loss of his parents, was manifesting in his waking life. Taking the therapist's words to heart, Laura resolved to engage with Isaac, rather than dismiss his fears. As they wandered through the woods, they stumbled upon an eerie structure that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Isaac, convinced that his father, an architect, had crafted this enigma just for him, felt an irresistible pull to enter. Laura, sensing the danger, attempted to restrain him, but in a moment of desperation, Isaac lashed out, striking her in the face. That moment shattered something within Laura, leaving her grappling with the darkness that had enveloped them all. Is it just a creature or an alien? Laura's night was haunted by a dream that clawed at her mind, vivid and unsettling. She found herself surrounded by swirling blue and red lights, the eerie glow illuminating the wreckage of James's car, abandoned and broken in the heart of the woods. When dawn broke, the air was thick with smoke. A fire raged in the distance, a sinister omen of what was to come. The creature that soon slithered into their home bore an unsettling resemblance to something otherworldly, its form shifting and fluid, capable of donning the guise of any earthly creature. Perhaps Isaac had already fallen victim to its insidious game, just as it had ensnared Bella by masquerading as a dog that mirrored her own. Now, it had set its sights on Laura and Isaac, ready to weave its dark web. It could easily twist itself into the image of James, manipulating Isaac's trust to lure them all into its trap. Once it had feasted on their souls, it would draw Isaac into its lair, leaving nothing but shadows behind. The alien presence was not just a creature, but a manifestation of the grief and isolation that consumed them, pulling Isaac deeper into a chasm of despair. The creature's request hung in the air like a thick fog, urging Isaac to lead Robert and Laura to the den. With a heavy heart, he complied. Robert, sensing the weight of the moment, wanted to confide in Isaac about his plans to take him in, so he agreed to traverse the shadowy woods alongside him. As they walked, Isaac shared that the den was a creation of his late father, a place he cherished and longed to revisit. Robert, understanding the bond, decided to pause and appreciate the craftsmanship of James. Even his unease crept into his mind, but when Robert gently reminded Isaac of his father's death, the boy's eyes darkened, a flicker of denial igniting within him. He attempted to coax Isaac back home, but the boy stood firm, resolute in his grief. Suddenly, a chilling sound echoed from the depths of the den, and as Robert shone his flashlight toward the entrance, his breath caught in his throat. There, lurking in the shadows, was a creature bearing the unmistakable visage of James. In the haunting conclusion of Daddy's Head, we learned that the creature had lunged at Robert, leaving him battered and broken, his life hanging by a thread in the sterile confines of a hospital room.
Laura.
What happened to Isaac and his mother? In the chilling conclusion of Daddy's Head, Laura confronted Isaac, declaring she could no longer be his mother. Isaac, filled with anger, accused her of kissing Robert, a betrayal that cut deep. Laura, remorseful, inquired if he had vandalized his father's grave, to which Isaac admitted his guilt. He insisted, however, that he hadn't taken the knife from her room nor had any part in Bella's demise. Before departing, Laura bluntly told Isaac he required professional help, something she couldn't provide. That night, an unsettling feeling gnawed at Laura, prompting her to check on Isaac. Upon entering his room, she was met with a horrifying sight. A grotesque creature perched beside her son. A scream tore from her throat as she slammed the door, injuring herself in the panic. But when Isaac's terrified cries pierced the air, she forced herself to return. Blood trickled from her head, yet she reached for Isaac, who clutched a knife from beneath his cabinet. The creature, whispering of its own loneliness, beckoned Isaac to join it in its lair. As it slithered closer, Laura, fueled by desperation, shoved it away and plunged the knife into its flesh repeatedly. The creature fled into the night, never to return. Years later, Isaac found himself back at that haunted house. Memories of the bizarre encounter flooding his mind. In a twisted way, the creature had united him and Laura against their fears. Once they recognized their bond and the strength they drew from one another, the creature ceased its torment, leaving them in peace. Isaac stepped into the den, now a man, only to be met by a haunting sight, a faded photograph of himself and his father, alongside the ghastly remains of the creature that had once terrorized their lives. This alien beast had pilfered the portrait during its first invasion, twisting its own visage to mirror James's likeness. the skull, with its unsettling hollow at the front, whispered of its unnatural origins, a reminder that it was far from ordinary. Upon returning home, we learn that Isaac now shares a life with his stepmother, Laura, in a new house, where they seem to have found a semblance of happiness together. So this was for today's folks. See you in our next video. Till then, bye-bye and take care.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.